The Jets have played about a third of their season, and I think it's time to take a little closer look at the 2020 Jets draft class and how the perception of that draft class should be changing. Let's talk about it. And well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Watch2K99. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch these videos. Hey, quick reminder, we go live every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Join me for the fun. We're going to talk Jets. We're going to talk New York sports, whatever may be going on. It's always a whole lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you there. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit today about the 2020 Jets draft class. Now, this was Joe Douglas's first draft as the Jets general manager. This, of course, was the COVID draft, so you couldn't really meet with players. And it has really been knocked. I've seen a lot of people on sports talk radio. I've seen people on various content providers, Jets content providers, call this draft class a complete disaster. All right? And I've always felt it was a little bit harsh. Are there disappointments from this draft class? Absolutely. There's no question about that. But I think after the first 6 games of this season, I want to take a little bit closer look at some of these picks and how I think the perception of that draft class should be changing. So I'm going to go through each pick in some more detail than others because some barely need an explanation. But I'm just going to give you my opinion on if that player or if that pick is a great pick, a good pick, a decent pick, a disappointment, or a bust. And that's going to be relative to where they were picked. So the first overall pick for the Jets, their first round pick was Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle. We know it has been quite an odyssey with him. This is his 4th year as a New York Jet, which is hard to believe. You know, we've seen when he plays, he's a very capable tackle, especially at run blocking. Pass blocking, I think, still has a little bit to be desired. He still allows a few pressures here and there. But he's back at left tackle, which is his natural position. This is where he needs to be playing. No way around it. I don't want to hear an idea of Dwayne Brown coming back into the lineup and putting Becton back over to the right side. Stop. All right? Becton has been through a lot. He's had 2 knee surgeries. He's had weight issues, which have been well documented. You know, he has said on Twitter himself he wants to play left tackle. And I think the results are proving that he is correct. Okay? Now, the Jets have already declined his 5th-year option. So after the season, they have to make a decision. Do they franchise him? Do they let him walk? Do they try to sign him to an extension? And it's very risky considering he has played 20 of a possible 54 games. But I think this has been a good pick, and I think it has the potential to still be a great pick because we know he's a capable tackle. Okay? But it's really about the durability with him because I believe the more he plays, the better he's going to get. Now, I'm actually going to take you on a little bit of a detour here. I'm not going to go in order here. I'm actually going to take you to a 4th-round pick the Jets made that year, and that's Camclark, offensive tackle at the time who was going to be a guard from the University of Charlotte. Now, it's really hard to give him a grade. In fact, I would give him a grade of incomplete because he never played a game for the Jets or in the NFL. But this was a pick that I was actually a little bit invested in because he played at the University of Charlotte. I got to watch him play in person against Old Dominion when they came down here to the Norfolk area. And I will say this, the Charlotte offense absolutely bullied around the Old Dominion defense. Not that you could take a whole lot out of one college game, but when I saw the Jets drafted an offensive lineman from Charlotte, I felt a little bit of an investment in him. Well, there is actually a very deep connection with Becton and Clark, and I felt it was important to go over it because the truth is Becton's success is Clark's success and vice versa. So Clark actually rejoined the Jets as an intern in player development this past May. But in reality, the only player he was really assigned to with developing was Mekhi Becton. Okay, because the two of them have been close friends since 2020 when they met in a pre-draft meeting down in Texas. So Becton flourished as a rookie, top 15 in both run blocking and pass blocking. However, Clark missed the season. He had a shoulder injury, Then the next training camp, he suffers a very severe spinal cord injury where it took over an hour for him to ever feel his feet. So his career was over. If he was to play again, he'd have a 50% risk of paralysis on every play. Obviously not worth it. So Clark seeks counseling at a mental health facility in New Jersey to help with the transition to, well, normal life, non-football life, we'll call it. So meanwhile, as we know, Becton had been injured week 1 against Carolina, so his rehab wasn't going very well. The weight starts to come on. Clark could tell the injury is taking a toll on his friend, so he invites Becton to join him at the same mental health facility. And things seem to be going well, and then Becton gets hurt last August. Hurts the same knee a second time, the right knee. So then the weight starts to go on. He hits 400 pounds. Clark stages an intervention. Cameron Clark did this, guys. This is important. He suggested Becton change his trainer and his agent. He did that. Clark pushed Becton in the weight room, preached the importance of the diet, the nutrition. They watched film together to help refine Becton's blocking technique. And then Becton reports to camp this season at 350 pounds, his lowest weight since college, and now he's back at left tackle where he always wanted to be. So remember, any credit, any success Mekhi Becton has in his career, you have to credit Cam Clark. So to me, the Cam Clark pick was worth it because without him, I don't know if Mekhi Becton would be starting on the Jets offensive line right now. I think we might be seeing Billy Turner. It's just strange how these things work out sometimes. Second round pick, Denzelmims, absolute bust. 42 catches in 30 games. The drop percentage in his last year with the Jets got up to 12%. He's on the Pittsburgh practice squad now. Third round pick, ashtyndavis, the safety. Now, I would call this a decent pick now. Now, it was too high of a pick, no doubt about it, for what he does. If this was a 5th round pick, I don't think we'd have any issues with it. But Davis has emerged as a very valuable special teams player, playing 80% of special team snaps over the last 2 seasons. And this year, he's actually started to get some more reps on defense. I think the loss of Chuck Clark had a good amount to do with that. But think about this. Davis last year played only 13 snaps on the defensive side of the ball. This season, he's already played 55. Pretty crazy. He has 4 career interceptions, including the game sealer against Cleveland last year. In a huge game, he's forced 3 fumbles in his career. And I will say this. God bless Sauce Gardner, guys like that. But maybe Davis could teach him a thing or two about holding on to the football when you have an opportunity for an interception. I'm just saying. Davis is probably not a starter in this league. He's not a starting safety, but he is getting better every season. So I would actually call this now a decent pick. Now the Jets' other third-round pick was defensive end Jabarizuniga from Florida. Absolute bust, played 12 games in the league. The less said about him, the better. 4th-round picks. Okay, Lamicalperine. I would have to call him a disappointment because I feel like every team in the league has their version of Lamicalperine. Just a running back who doesn't do anything all that well, but just kind of hangs around in there and can fill in at a moment's notice. To me, he was like a lesser version of Bilal Powell for the Jets. He played 14 games with the Jets, averaged 3.5 yards per carry, did score 2 touchdowns. He was a jag to me, just another guy. And he hasn't played in an NFL game since 2021, but he is still with the Kansas City Chiefs, so he is still kicking around the league. So I would call that a disappointment. And the other 4th-round pick, James Morgan, absolute bust, never played a game in the league. We already mentioned Cameron Clark in the 4th round as well. Now, in the 5th round, the Jets drafted Brycehall, cornerback from Virginia. A lot of people like me were very happy about this, living in Virginia. It was myself, some other folks from Virginia were very happy when we looked into this guy. We know he had the talent, just dealt with some injuries in college, but we knew he was a capable cornerback. Now, he only played 8 games his rookie year, played all 17 games in year 2, then just 5 games last year in his 3rd season, and he's played 4 this season. Okay, but this season he has emerged big. One of the biggest things that I talked about, why I was concerned about the Jets defense, is last year Sauce played every game, DJ played every game, the safeties played every game. They never missed a single snap. You couldn't count on that happening again. And I was worried if Sauce or DJ went down, what was the Jets' depth at cornerback? And I was worried, especially going into the game against Philadelphia. Well, he did a very good job against Denver, first of all. Allowed, I think, 12 yards receiving total with the wide receivers he was covering. And against Philly, he was targeted 8 times, 4 catches, 69 yards, plus an interception. Second straight game where he's had a takeaway. And, Brycehall had been buried. Kyle Pitts had a really... Kyle Pitts had his way with him between an exhibition game and I think the game in London. So Brycehall can't cover a tight end. All right, fine. But, Brycehall really played, I think, on defense that first game against Baltimore, the opening game. Devin Duvernay caught a touchdown against him, even though there was really good coverage. And Brycehall was basically, it felt like he was never seen again on defense that year. So you got to give him a whole lot of credit for coming back, for emerging, and stepping in the number 1 cornerback role. Now, it's not a role he's going to have to do all season, we don't think. We expect Sauce and DJ and Brandon Echols to return, but it's nice to know the Jets have that depth if needed. So I would call this a good pick. A very, very good pick for a 5th rounder. And it was. I'm just very glad the Jets kept him because they've turned out to need him. All right, 6th round pick, Bradenmann. I call this one a disappointment. We wanted more from him. He was the first punter drafted that season. But at least, he's a capable punter, just very, very inconsistent. And now, of course, he's punting for the Eagles, and the Jets upgraded with Thomas Morstead. So he never really got, if you look at the stats, he never got to a higher level than being like a middle-of-the-road punter. Just his inconsistency was just pretty disappointing. And then, you know what? That was the last Jets draft pick, and if that's all there was, I would say yes, this is a pretty disappointing draft class, all things considered. But there's one X factor here that, to me, raises it up to a class that I would call a good class. And that is undrafted free agent from 2020, number 47, number 1 in your heart, Brycehuff. That's right. He was an undrafted free agent in 2020. Many of us were advocates of this guy from the first time we watched him play. We could see the get-off speed. We could see the explosiveness. Some of us even got called names, on some of these shows because we were like Brycehuff bootlickers or whatever we were. I can't find those people now. And now pretty much everybody is screaming for Joe Douglas to re-sign Brycehuff before he hits free agency this offseason. It's amazing. The Jets placed the 2nd round tender on this guy, and what else can you really say? Nobody else came forward, and let's all be thankful that happened. But I'm going to go through Brycehuff's stats really quick here. 2020, these are the snap counts. 2020, he played 30% of the snaps. 2021 played 51% of the snaps. Now, that season, he had to go on IR with a back injury, and that really limited, I think, his production last season as well. 2022 played 20% of the snaps. This year, he's played 34% of the snaps. Now, looking at the numbers, 2020, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits. 2021, 2 sacks, 8 quarterback hits. Last year, 3.5 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. And this year, after a third of the season, he's already at 2.5 sacks with 8 quarterback hits. It is looking really, really good. In fact, Huff leads the entire league in pressure rate at 25.7% over the last 2 years. So if you go by percentage, he is the best in the league. And if you want to go by total pressures, he is 3rd in the NFL among the first 6 weeks. The only 2 players ahead of him, 2 guys named Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson. And they both needed a whole lot more opportunities to get to that level. So Brycehuff, as I told you, has played 34% of the snaps for the Jets. But Max Crosby has been on the field 97% of the time for the Raiders, and Hutchinson 90% of the time for Detroit. My goodness. So if you look at this whole picture, because to me you got to include the UDFAs as well, while this Jets draft class will definitely not go down as the best one that Joe Douglas ever had, I think it's a whole lot better than what it looked like at the beginning of the season. So the point of this, you got to be careful about grading players and grading draft classes too early. You never know what can change. So those are my thoughts on the 2020 class. Let me know your thoughts. Put them down there in the comments. Has your perception of some of these players changed over the course of this season? I want to know what you have to think. Again, please join me Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.